that's the time allocated. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could I invite the Christchurch Cathedral Reinstatement Trust, Victoria Henstock. Thank you. This is a nice segue really into the next submission, so good timing here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter, Mr. Guthrie.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. I'm here in my capacity as the Establishment Director of the Christchurch Cathedral Reinstatement Trust. With me is our Chair, Peter Guthrie, and Trustee, Tim Carter. I was listening intently to the questions that were asked then, and I'll be covering some of those off, as many as I can. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be heard, and I thank you for your commitment to the reinstatement of the cathedral, which is at the heart of our city. Your $10 million grant represents a significant contribution to that reinstatement project. I would like to talk to you about timing, and the Trust shares the concerns of Mr. Holly, the previous submitter. I reiterate that it's critical to the success of the project that the funds are received within the stage 1, which is anticipated to be about no more than 7 years. And the Trust asks the Council today to confirm your commitment to pay that $10 million within that 7 years and not the 10 years as proposed. Can I talk to you please about the joint venture? And you asked some questions about that. The joint venture is to be established and the Trust is an equal partner to that venture with church property trustees. And I'm happy to confirm that significant progress has been made on the establishment and on the negotiation of a joint venture agreement. That agreement is critical to and underpins the joint venture project going forward. And whilst it is not yet signed, I can tell you that it is close, and that the Trust are happy to say that we see no real impediment to that agreement being signed. We are conscious of the requirements of church property trustees in respect of the definition of guaranteed or secured or assured, and we're working our way through that and how it impacts on the joint venture itself as part of our negotiation, but we are certainly very close. One of the first tasks of the joint venture company when it is established will be to confirm a consolidated project delivery plan, and it is that project delivery plan that will provide the timelines that you're asking about and will provide the projected cash flows for that stage 1 of that project. So the Trust certainly expect that that project delivery plan will be confirmed within the first 6 months of the joint venture company being established. Significant work has already gone on in the background on behalf of church property trustees in relation to that, but it is up to the joint venture company to own that plan and to confirm the consolidated project delivery plan. So if it's helpful to you, the Trust can say that at the point that that consolidated delivery plan is ready, we can come back to the Council with some more certainty about exactly when within the first 7 years that money will be required. So I hope that answers some of the questions from the previous submitter. I'd also like to talk to you about the fundraising itself, and I can confirm that the Trust is well underway with the development of our overarching strategic fundraising framework. We have engaged with experts in charitable giving, and we are currently working on our timelines for a consolidated capital campaign to raise the funds for the reinstatement of the cathedral. We are well down the track with our key resources study, and in this regard we have significant lead gifts, and the networks have already been identified as to where we're going to pursue the major part of those funds. That said, the Trust is very confident that we have a really solid basis for a successful capital fundraising campaign. I would like to give you some key messages today, if I may. I want the Council, please, to remember our cathedral, and I want to remind you that every stone and every pillar and every window reflects the history of the city and of this region. And I ask you to reimagine that same cathedral, and I ask you to share with the Trust's vision and restoring that broken icon to its former glory. For this trust, the project is all about reconnection. It's about reconnection with our people, and it is about reconnection with our community. And the project is about revitalisation. It's about looking forward to the return of our city centre. So your $10 million contribution paid within the first 7 years that we're seeking really is essential to the reinstatement of the project and is essential for the revitalisation of the heart of our city. We're happy to answer any questions. I note that I've covered some of those time frames and given you some indication as to when you can expect a little bit more certainty about the time.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to say thank you to yourself, Peter, and to others for stepping up and taking on this role. It's a huge role, but the city's very grateful for what you're doing for us. So thank you. Glenn?
Thank you. Good to see you all. Given that restoration projects or rebuilds rather, tend to blow out in terms of time and cost more than new builds, I guess, probably given the uncertainties, what kind of certainty do you have that you might require anyone's funding at a given point in time? Because, I mean, in this case, it could blow out over 7 years, 10 years, 15. No one knows till you actually get in there.
I wonder, Mr. Carter, if you'd like to help us with that.
So there's been a lot of time and effort calculating the cost to reinstate the cathedral. We've had a number of different leading quantity surveyors to come up with a budget figure. And the other thing about that is putting some discipline around the joint venture board and the joint venture company to actually deliver the reinstatement of that cathedral for the budget that is set as part of the funding JV agreement that is being negotiated at the moment, and that will happen, and that's why there's a lot to work through, but we are very confident that we've got the budget right, and also that we're putting the motions in place to have the right discipline for the joint venture company to deliver the reinstated cathedral for the budget that's being set.
Probably an unfair question, but is it possible to land on a kind of time contingency as much we can build in cost contingencies? Is it?
There is. I'm not really in a position that I can say that here now, but there will be a time contingency in the program.
Jimmy?
You particularly mentioned regarding to the fundraising the framework. So I just want to know your framework, whether including your funding the campaign, your funding the target in the timeline. Timeline you particularly mentioned. Let's focus on your first tier, 7 years, or spread over to the 10 years. Your funding.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the question is.
You set up the funding the campaign and the target framework.
Yes. Yes.
Your target, how much funding you will get?
How much?
You will receive. Yes.
That's still being negotiated as part of the joint venture agreement, and we're going through the processes to establish the exact budget of what, and then how much fundraising we have already, taking account of the council contribution, and then what we need over and above that. So that is exactly what is being worked through as part of the joint venture agreement. And unfortunately, because that's still being negotiated, we can't disclose figures and facts from that negotiation currently.
That's one of the few remaining points that we're working on, is to try and get a start figure.
Very good. Sarah?
Thank you. I mean, it's clear that the council is in support of this and has the intent of the $10 million. I was looking at our original resolutions, and that our $10 million, the ratepayers' $10 million was to go towards it after the other sources of funding from Crown and Church. That wouldn't necessarily be for stage one. That was for the whole reinstatement project. And I'm just wondering how that fits with your fundraising and things. And it also says that we would apply it and that we could adjust ours down should fundraising exceed. So we'd want to be assured that you weren't just fundraising taking our 10 million into account, but you were aiming for more than that.
For phase one, the council 10 million, even if it's last in, will still be needed. Fundraising for the later phases will be all raised through fundraising.
I'm just clarifying because our resolution doesn't talk to the different stages, it talks to the project as a whole, and that ours would be sort of the last sort of funding that went in overall, not the last for stage 1.
So what's the second phase? What's the next phase after the first phase? Isn't that the tower?
The tower and the ancillary buildings.
Yeah.
And the major cost is phase 1, which is the main cathedral.
So we are in for phase 1. The tower is separate project, it always has been, and the ancillary buildings are separate as well.
And that will all those two, the second 2 phases will all be raised through fundraising.
Yeah.
And is the
No,
guarantee essential?
That's enough.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you very much. And as I said before, these things don't happen unless people are prepared to step up and take on these roles. So thank you very much for what you're doing for the city.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.